Welcome to this week's edition of the Weightlifting Platform, your one stop for all that's happening with the international weightlifting world. Brought to you by the Pan-American Weightlifting Federation. I'm your host, Richard Mason. On this week's show, we'll talk with longtime technical official, administrator, athlete, pretty much everything in weightlifting, Sam Coffa of Australia, where we'll look back at some of the history of weightlifting. We'll also see how Sam handles himself on the clock segment. We'll also check in with Coach Fernando Serrano for our tip of the week. And then our regular feature, Did You Know? But first, here are the headlines. The International Weightlifting Federation is heeding the warnings of the International Olympic Committee. At a meeting late in February, the IWF Executive Board elected to include athletes in its deliberations, with 2 members of the Athletes Commission being given the right to vote. The IWF also chose to delay the Electoral Congress, scheduled for later this month, to allow a constitutional conference to be held first, setting up the new structure for the international body before allowing the member countries to elect their leadership. In February, IOC President Thomas Bach verbally warned weightlifting, and then later, in a letter to the National Olympic Committees, the IOC warned of consequences if weightlifting did not listen to their warnings with threats of Olympic exclusion. No dates have been announced yet for those 2 congresses. On the platform, the Pan American World Cup Under 15, Under 17, and Open competition wrapped up. Congratulations to all the participants there. Still with congratulations, Cuba is celebrating the 60th anniversary of the National Sports Institute. In elections in Mexico, Rosalio Alvarado has been re-elected president of that country's weightlifting federation. And in sadder news, Dr. Gaydar Gil Santana of Puerto Rico has passed. He was an athlete, coach, team leader, IWF Category 1 referee. He'll be remembered as an educator, loyal friend, and a lover of the sport we call weightlifting. May he rest in peace. He was 72 years old. As we told you, we're going to focus our attention this episode on history. Did you know weightlifting was one of the few modern-day Olympic sports that was contested at the very first modern Olympic Games in Athens in 1896? Of course you did. But did you know who won? 7 athletes participated in the one-hand and two-handed lifts. Do you know who was the first Olympic weightlifting champion? Well, Launceston Elliott of Great Britain won the one-handed lift. And in the two-handed lift, it was Denmark's Viggo Jensen winning the two-handed lift. Of course, 1896, we have no video of that actual event. We just have the reports. Congratulations, and let's see who wins the next Olympic medals in Tokyo in 2021. Now, with more history of this great sport, a man who's been around a barbell for more than half a century. He's been an administrator, currently serves on the executive board of the IWF. He's been the top referee in the world. He's been president of his national federation. He's even been mayor of his own hometown. And he's joining us in the middle of his night on the other side of the globe. Good morning. Hello, Sam Coffa. Thank you for taking the time to join us.
Good morning from down under.
Now, tell me, Sam, your involvement in this sport has been decades, and that would be humbly stated. How did you begin? Tell me your story. How did you begin in weightlifting?
I began weightlifting when I migrated to Australia in 1951. And when I left my country at the age of 15, I was 5'1". And I thought I was going to be a giant. But when I arrived in Australia, I didn't grow any further. So therefore, I had to look for some sport which suited my body and my shape. And I was stocky and strong. And there it is, the sport of weightlifting came to be.
Now, was it tough to find a weightlifting gym at that point in your new country?
Well, there was none. There's not a case of finding. There were none to be found. I joined some sort of a gym which had wrestling and boxing and weightlifting, or a bit of weightlifting or weight training. And so I dedicated myself more to wrestling than I did to weightlifting in those days. And but unfortunately, we used to wrestle on mats, canvas mats, which bruised the cheeks of my face, and they would never heal. And my girlfriend at the time didn't think that that was very nice, so I started doing weightlifting, not as a sport, but rather to get the body right and impress the girls and all that sort of thing, you know. And my entry into weightlifting came about because in 1956, as you know, we had the Melbourne Olympic Games, and the weight training venue for weightlifting was a mere 5 minutes away from where I was working. So I used to go there every day with my bike and watch the greats like Henderson and Shepherd and Chuck Vinci and Isaac Berger and all of those. And I took photos, and my love affair with the sport began.
Did you compete? Were you competing yet at that point?
No, I started competing in 1958 at the ripe old age of 23. So I started very light. As I say, I used up a lot of my youthful energies into doing all sorts of things from, as I said before, wrestling and a bit of weight training and a bit of bodybuilding and powerlifting. You name it, I did it.
Now, you were. What did the competitions look like when you were first starting to get involved in at that level, like as an athlete?
Well, it was slow. As you well know, we had the three disciplines: the press, the snatch, and the clean and jerk, and there was no time limit. So therefore, you took as long as you pretty well liked. The only thing you got was from time to time a warning from the centre referee saying, "Coffer to the platform, please," you know, that sort of thing. And so it used to take a long, long time. I remember I got to tell you, I was the doorman at the Olympic Games in Melbourne when when the super heavies took on the platform on the stage, and I was there until about 2:30 in the morning because those big blokes didn't move very fast, I can tell you. But I watched Anderson win the gold and Salvetti the silver and Pigaiani of Italy the bronze, and that was fantastic.
Now, did you imagine that we would be where we are today with competitions, with clocks, with big video boards, all of those things? Was this conceivable?
Well, no, not at that time, but it took me only a matter of a year or two into the competition for me to become a referee, because we were short of referees in my state. And I did. From that point, I started looking at the rules and regulations and what I could and what I couldn't do, and what we should and shouldn't do. And I remember saying to myself, I need to get into this in order to make it a little bit more lively than what it is now. And sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like part of your legacy to the sport, I think, is to a big extent, in my opinion, as a referee, is your impact on the technical rules, including removing body weight as a determinant in medals. That's forced the lighter athletes to add a kilo for a tiebreaker, or instead of just settling for the same weight. That it's added excitement to the meets. What do you think is the biggest add that you've brought to the game, and when it comes to refereeing and the technical rules?
Undoubtedly, the biggest change came when we abolished the uh, the 2.5 kilogram body, 2.5 kilo increment. That was the biggest change when we abolished that and came in with the 1 kilo rule. I think we revolutionized the whole sport. Things moved faster, and there were more excitement because people could win with 1 kilo, and so on. And that was, I think, my greatest interference with the sport, with the rules of the game. But also, I was the one responsible for giving the jury the power to reverse the decision. I was the one who invented the jury box, um, which was christened as Sam's lunchbox, because the prototype was in a little lunchbox uh, case, and then of course it was naturally developed into a more sophisticated way, and it's now sits in every jury, and that was another innovation. And in those days I used to watch the jury, and one or two of them were asleep, absolutely asleep, and I thought there should be a way of keeping them awake a little bit, so pressing the button and watching the competition, and it was a good innovation, I thought, at that time.
Okay, tough question now. Failure? Anything that you kind of helped bring in that you went after maybe a year or after a couple of years went, ooh, geez, that wasn't that didn't work out the way that I'd hoped it would? Are you comfortable talking about something? Is there something like that?
No, not failure as such, but disappointment that we didn't bring it to fruition, and that was the electronic change of call. We flirted with that for quite a few years, but by the time we had the prototype, we had tested it, and it was working. But by the time it was brought to its existence in 2017, of course, as you know, I lost the position on the executive board, and so therefore it was dropped.
Okay, thanks, Sam. We're not getting you off this easy. Thank you very much for your look at history. But as you know, as you talked about the introduction of time, a 1-minute clock can be stressful for the athletes, so we're going to make it a little stressful for you. For this part of the episode, we're going to put you on a 1-minute clock and ask you questions to get to know you better. Some of them weightlifting related, some of them not. Sam, what's the highest weight you've ever lifted?
120 kilos.
Who's the, if any of your opponents, anybody that you've lifted against, who would you like to sit down and have a cup of coffee with?
Well, certainly the people who beat me.
Ha! Find out how they did it, right? Your favorite song that you've heard in the gym, whether training or whether at a competition?
Now we're not allowed to sing in the gym, so no songs.
Oh, okay. Well, do you have a hobby outside weightlifting? If so, what is it?
Yes, hobby is music and gardening. I play the
favorite
trumpet.
film. Oh, I didn't know that. Favorite film. There you go. Fictional character you'd like to be. That might be the same answer there.
Oh, no. Fictional character would be Wile E. Coyote.
There you go. A real person you admire.
A real person I admire was my father.
There you go. We've run out of time. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us, Sam, especially in the middle of your night. You've been a great sport, and we very much appreciate it. Thank you. Sam Koffa.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Now it's time for our tip of the week. With this week's tip, we have joining us from the coaching staff of Spain's Olympic weightlifting program, Fernando García Serrano.
Hola, ¿qué tal, chicos de la Weightlifting Platform by PANAMERICA? Mi nombre es Fernando Tomás García Serrano, soy el segundo entrenador del equipo nacional español de halterofilia y antes de nada quisiera mandaros un mensaje de ánimo, de apoyo. Espero que todos estéis entrenando en las mejores condiciones a pesar de esta pandemia que nos asola y sobre todo que pronto podamos volver a coincidir en los eventos internacionales que tanto nos gustan, conseguir unos buenos resultados y sobre todo de la forma más segura posible. Mi consejo para todas aquellas personas que se inician en el mundo de las pesas, en el mundo de la halterofilia, es sobre todo que sean humildes, que sean constantes, que sean trabajadores, que sean ordenados y que tengan un gran espíritu de sacrificio. Es importante que todas estas personas tengan ese espíritu de sacrificio, ya que en el deporte muchísimas veces tenemos que renunciar a otra parte de la vida que no tendríamos que renunciar si no fuéramos deportistas. Así que eso es importante también que la gente lo vea y que la gente lo sepa y lo valore. Así también decir que el mundo del deporte es un mundo apasionante, es un mundo donde nos enseña unos valores integrales y un conocimiento de diferentes culturas, diferentes ciudades. Podemos visitar diferentes sitios que no hubiéramos visitado si no hubiéramos sido deportistas y que bienvenidos a este maravilloso mundo, que se animen, pero sobre todo con eso, que sean fuertes, que sean humildes, que trabajen, que sean constantes y que sobre todo presten atención a las indicaciones que se les dan en el gimnasio y así seguro que les irá muy bien. Espero veros pronto, un saludo.
Thank you very much, Fernando. That is this week's historic edition of the Weightlifting Platform, brought to you by the Pan American Weightlifting Federation. Thank you for taking the time to join us. If you like what you see, please bookmark us here where you're watching us on YouTube. You can also like the IWF on Facebook or tweet to the IWF at IWFnet, N-E-T, on Twitter. I'm Richard Mason. Thanks for joining us. Good lifting.